continues. Well, let's begin what's trending. On Monday, governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party decried the high cost of living and free fall of the naira. Speaking with journalists, the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, BALA Mohammed, said that Nigeria is almost on the road to Venezuela due to the current economic hardship in the country.
The cost of living is going high. We are almost on the road to Venezuela. We have experiences all elsewhere. So we are giving concrete and positive opposition, but not insulting anybody.
Well, I hope we're not going to Venezuela because it was a horrible situation, and it is still a horrible situation. Well, in the same vein, the presidency has described Nigeria as a very, very poor country, given its low per capita income compared to other African nations. Special advisor on information and strategy to the president, Bayo Ononuga, who was on our nightly news program Primetime, made the statement on Monday, adding that the administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu is hoping that the pressure on the country's finances will reduce with the removal of petrol subsidy and the unification of the exchange rate.
So what is happening is that our country is a very, very poor country. Very, very poor.
Well, many Nigerians will disagree with you. They say it's the economic managers that
I will tell you why I say we are a very poor country. I think we have a wrong impression about the wealth of our country. It's exaggerated. This country, for example, look, if you start from minimum wage, you find that our country, when you compare our country to a country like Kenya or South Africa, let me even use South Africa. South Africa's minimum wage is about $240 a month. In Nigeria, at 33,000 naira, just about $39. Yeah. Look at the gap, and you can see this reflected in other wages. If you look at but for me, the indices of poverty, it's very there. It's obvious that we have it, and people are poor, and that's why when we have this problem we are facing through now, they cannot really adjust because they don't have the disposable income. It's a very pathetic situation, and the government is concerned, and that's why there are talks now about reviewing the minimum wage, which again,
what the NLC is saying.
The minimum wage, let me tell you,
yeah.
The last time it was done under
President
Buhari, when the wage was increased to 33,000 or so per month, or 30,000 per month, till today, 26 state governments cannot pay it. 26 out of 36, only 10 are paying. The rest are still paying the whole rate, or maybe they've just improved a bit. But most, according to the people who have monitored it, say 26 state governments are unable to comply. 26. So, whatever the government wants to do now, even if we increase wages to 100,000 naira.
Well, the NLC is saying 1 million, that's what they are looking at now, not even 100,000. Because if you go by the dollar rate at 1,500 naira to $1, it's no longer feasible for them to even ask for 100 or 200,000.
I don't say if we increase to 100,000 naira, will the federal government be able to pay?
Dr. Abati, that was from your interview this day live, where NLC President Joe Ajero is now saying is 1 million naira that they are requesting. But you know, this statement from Bayo Ononuga is at variance with Vice President Kashim Shettima, who you spoke with in Davos, who actually said, you know, Nigeria is not in Davos to beg because Nigeria is a rich country, rich with a lot of resources. Even 2 months ago, he says, based on our, arable land, water resources, Nigeria is a very rich country. Of course, this comment has generated a lot of reactions. This person, Hidima, wrote, a very, very poor country that spends so much on wastages in governance, spending billions in renovating already tushed apartments for executives, buying expensive cars for the executives, legislatives, and judiciary arms of the government, when there are cars already in the fleet. Instead, we have a very, very bad leadership. I guess that's what he's trying to say. But also, Dr. Abati, speaking about this minimum wage, I believe the federal government had set up a 37-member tripartite committee to, I don't know what they are going to be talking about, to talk about this minimum wage. And then there's the circular that was circulating last week. I believe it was signed, they say, by the secretary to the, Federation, government of the Federation. And, they were demanding, what, 1 billion naira to inaugurate that committee. And I guess the response from the presidency is that, you know, it's a mole from the PDP that, you know, leaked this memo. Is it about the leaked memo? Is that the question? Is it about the leaked memo, or is that not the most outrageous thing that you have ever heard, Dr. Abati?
Well, quite a cocktail of issues.
Yes.
Let's unpack them one by one. The PDP Governors Forum, well, that was a newspaper headline, say Nigeria could end up as Venezuela.
Well, BALA Mohammed said it
that
as
editor
well. Yes.
chose that headline.
Right.
Yes, we're not saying he didn't say it. And what the PDP Governors Forum was pointing out is that, look, there is a very serious cost of living crisis in the country. And that if we're not careful, the way we are carrying on, we could end up like Venezuela.
Yeah.
And what is the story of Venezuela? Venezuela was one of the largest exporters of oil. It still has one of the richest deposits of crude oil in the world. At a point, Venezuela had one of the largest gold reserves, what they call their sovereign reserve in the world. This was a country, rich country, blessed with resources, that as a result of mismanagement, by 2013, under Hugo Chavez and what they call Chavismo, Venezuela, as rich as it was in oil, had become more or less a poor country, with credit rating in the negative zone, with the currency, the Bolivar, so devaluation, the same thing that we're facing in this country. In fact, it became so difficult for people to live in Venezuela that toilet paper was not affordable. Yeah. And at a point, Venezuela held the record for the highest inflation rate in the world, over 100% inflation rate. And now that record has been overtaken by Argentina, that now has an inflation rate of over 114%. Now, so it's not a good story. So what the PDP is saying, the PDP chairman BALA Mohammed is saying, is that government at the center and at the subnational level should come together and rescue Nigeria. Our currency has been devalued. Our inflation has gone up. There is food protest all over the place. So, and yet we are as rich as Venezuela. So it's a cautionary tale, you know. So beyond the sensationalism of the phrase. Now, to go to Mr. Ononuga's point, saying that Nigeria is poor. No, Nigeria is not poor. Most people would not agree. We date it back to Onyeka Onwenu's famous documentary, The Squandering of Riches. And the whole point of that documentary, that many will remember, was that, look, Nigeria is a very rich country. But because of the way the resources of this country have been managed over the years, then we have squandered the riches, and then that was how we ended up being identified as one of the poverty capitals of the world. The World Bank even said more people will join the poverty queue in Nigeria this year. Not because the country is not rich, but because the country has been mismanaged. And the problem is one of leadership. Yeah. So that today, what is our GDP? What is in our foreign reserve? Why is it that some people are even afraid to celebrate Valentine's Day tomorrow? Part of the reason may be, part of the reasons may be economic, or they may say they are frugal people. It's frugality, you know. So they don't want to celebrate Valentine's Day. The people I'm talking about, I'm sure, know themselves.
I know that you are celebrating Valentine's, so I don't know who he's talking about.
Okay, you don't know some people.
No, I know he's celebrating.
So, I mean, this is what we're dealing with here. You know, Nigeria needs to be better managed. You know, and this cautionary tale should not be cast in political terms. And as for Labour, saying the new National Minimum Wage Committee, that new National Minimum Wage Committee is a product of necessity, because the law, the last act, you know, from 2023 will expire by the end of April. But for us to hear that 500 million will be allocated for the committee, and the secretary to the government of the president had the temerity to ask for 1 billion for an assignment that will not take up to 1 month. 1
hour, Dr. Abati, between four of us, we can finish that conversation.
The president told them to work expeditiously so that we can have a new national minimum wage, which will go, the bill will go to the National Assembly, and the president will assent to it. Some people are asking for 1 billion. Some people are very bold in this country. So the president says it's 500 million. But you mentioned Ajero. What Ajero said, in relation to that, when he brought it up, was that he's been attending so many meetings with the federal government that nobody has given him any sitting allowance, and that Labour has not collected a kobo from the federal government for attending meetings. So I'm sure Joe Ajero and Festus Osifo of the TUC, they will be monitoring how that 500 million naira that has been approved to fix new national minimum wage, how the committee will spend that money and what they will spend it on at all times. What we can ask for is transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
If you ask some people in government, they'll say, well, for you to give more money, you have to spend money to get money.
Unacceptable.
This is the irony.
Rufai, 500 million to set up a committee. But I guess the big question here is Nigeria poor? Is Nigeria really poor?
No, on practical terms, based on analysis and data, Nigeria is a poor country. Let's not deceive ourselves. See, I say this a lot. I get time before no be property. Because you have the potential to be rich and you don't work towards that riches. As long as you don't have the money, you don't have the riches. It's just like a man that the soothsayer told that you are going to be rich and he went to sleep. He didn't work. That's how Nigeria is. Nothing will happen. And I'm happy you are talking about Venezuela. Let me now use Zimbabwe to prove to you I get time before no be property. At a point, Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of Africa. At a point, inflation was -7% in Zimbabwe. But guess what? I think Zimbabwe holds the record for the highest inflation. Their highest was 788%. This was the same country that had low inflation at a point. So, Nigeria is a poor country as we speak. The painful part is that despite the poverty, you still have the president. The president was even supposed to say rejected on that document. But you saw his signature, he said, start with 500 million first. Never. What hurts a lot of people is that with the poverty, because look at the budget, Nigeria doesn't have a $40 billion budget. With devaluation, you don't have a $40 billion budget. You want to compare with Kenya, Egypt, or South Africa. So, it's despite the poverty, people are still stealing the small ones. It's just like when you have one meat remaining in the soup, but when you open it, you are seeing teeth don't eat and small, don't eat and you don't eat the meat finish. That's what's happening. And that has always been the case of Nigerians, and we have a way of blaming others. I'm happy you referred to that documentary done in 1983 by Yeka when it was just on the cusp. Buhari had just taken over when that documentary was done. It was called Scanning of Riches. It was a partnership between the NTA and the BBC. That documentary this year is 40 years old today. Life was even way better. All the things Oyeka Wonu talked about that documentary is still rife today. Corruption by big men, government stealing and all of that, the things Buhari was coming to address is still rife today. So practically we are poor. The painful part is that with this small resource, people keep eating. And I'm very shocked that rather than the government to react, they are blaming PDP more. Anyway, I'm not surprised.
PDP more.
This is we blame Ghanaians for our problems in the 80s after we had eaten, squandered our riches in the 70s after the cement. We said Ghana was our problem, so we said Ghana must go.
Yeah.
But and you see, the president said, if they say it's 500 million, start with 500 million first. First. So there's a potential, and for me, the fact that the president is complicit because we saw his green signature on this.
All right.
When we ought to say, no, we do not have the money for this resource. So that is what. But practically, Nigeria is a poor country.
All right.
And we were talking yesterday. No disposable income in this country is low. This is over 100 million people live on less than $2 per day.
All right.
Very poor.
All right.
But with the poverty, they are still stealing.
The woman on the table, Dr. Bati says we are rich. Rufai says we are poor. Okay. What's your verdict?
No, I believe that the wealth that the vice president was referring to in that interview with Dr. Bati was potential wealth.
Yes.
And the fact that we have, and he did mention when he gave example about the potential in our arable land, potential in the oil sector, potential in our manufacturing sector. But it's how to turn potential wealth to real wealth. That's where the big challenge is. And the reason why a number of Nigerians, if you ask the average Nigerian on the street, is Nigeria poor or rich? They would say we're very rich. Because we judge this by the spendings of the government. In fact, it's not just the meat in the pot. It is meat that you borrowed from your neighbor because you did not have enough to serve, that people are stealing from. That's the challenge, and it sends a very bad signal to investors. Because we say, in terms of what we have in a bank balance, reserves, everything, not enough, not anywhere enough. But in terms of what we have, in terms of our natural resources, we have, Minister of Mineral Resources gave an interview just recently about the plans in that area. We've heard of plans and plans and plans. When will potential and plans translate to actual revenue, to actual wealth for the people? It's not just saying that we're rich by what we have. It's, can the average man feed? Where's the middle class in Nigeria? We've erased that. So it's saddening and heartbreaking for Nigerians to understand the fact that there's so much around us, yet we are begging to eat. Yeah. It's like someone who lives in water and is thirsty. And that's why it is such a big deal for a lot of people. So if Mr. Bayo Onanuga would come out to say that Nigeria is very, very poor, let it start by, let leadership demonstrate that, so that we can actually believe that and all begin to cut our coat according to the cloth that we have.
I like that. What was that? What's that song?
You mentioned water. That's Samuel Coleridge. Water, water everywhere. Not a drop.
Yes, absolutely. What about that song? Nigeria go survive. How do they say?
Yeah,
Nigeria go survive. My people go survive. Oh, Nigeria.
Mario Gare.
Well, all right.